Hello everyone, today we're going to be making the beautiful Venecia coat. I love this coat, it has such a unique silhouette and it's meant to be oversized. Remember that you can find this and all of our patterns on our Etsy or on our website. They're both linked down below, or if you'd like a custom made order, you can also do so. So let's get started with the tutorial. First things first, this pattern comes in sizes 32 to 50 and it's recommended for experienced sewists. These are all the fabrics and materials you're going to be needing for the coat. And the first thing we're going to be doing is printing out our pattern. You can do so in US letter paper, A0 or A4. I printed mine using Adobe Acrobat so I could turn off all of the sizes except the one I'm going to be using. And I printed it in US letter format. Next, we have to assemble the pattern. As you can see, we have margins on the paper, which are going to help us assemble the pattern correctly, just like this. So make sure to attach row by row until you get the entire pattern. And now you can cut all of the pattern pieces. This is the fabric I'm going to be using, is this gorgeous gray color, and this is the one I'll be using for the lining. For cutting out the pattern, I'm going to be using the layouts recommended on the pattern instructions. So here I laid everything on top of my fabric and started cutting. Most of the pattern pieces have some notches, so make sure to cut those before removing the pattern from the fabric. And also make sure to transfer the rest of the markings, such as the pockets, the buttons, and the buttonholes. On the wrong side of the main front panel, we're going to attach a strip of interfacing. Now you're going to grab the pocket welts and you're going to fold them by the length, right side of the fabric facing inward, and you're going to sew the short edges at 1 centimeter. Then you're going to trim off the edges and flip it inside out. Make sure to give it a good press so you can fasten the bottom edges at about 5 millimeters. Now going back to our front main panels, we're going to place the welts with the raw edge on the pockets opening just like this. And you're going to sew at 1 centimeter. Next, you're going to place the pocket facings with the right side of the fabric on the line of the pocket opening as I'm showing you, and sew once again. Then you're going to grab the linings and with the right side of the fabric over the welt, you're going to sew over the previous seam. You can sew from the wrong side of the main front so you can see the previous seam. Now you're going to cut the pocket opening as shown on this sketch over here on the right, and make sure not to overcut. And then you're going to turn the pocket pieces into the seam allowance to the wrong side of the front bodices, just like this. And you're going to match the pocket facing and lining with right sides. And you're going to sew that little triangle we cut to that seam allowance. You're going to do that for both sides of the pocket openings. And then you're going to continue sewing the bottom edge, which is the one that we're missing. And make sure to repeat all of the steps on the other front panel. Now you're going to grab your back bodice details and the main back side bodices, and you're going to match them right sides together as I'm showing you. So the curvier side will go with the curvier side of the back bodice details, just like this. Make sure to match the notches because the length of these two pattern pieces is not the same. And you're going to sew leaving a 1 cm seam allowance. Once you do that, make sure to press the seam open really nicely. You're going to go to this edge and you're going to measure the longest piece from the edge up 5 cm, and you're going to cut that seam allowance because you're going to fold it over just like this and press in place. Now you're going to match the main back and the back side bodice with right sides together, just like this. And you're going to sew the back underarm seam, leaving a 1 cm seam allowance. You're going to do this on both sides of the coat. And do not forget to press open the seam. As you know, both of the sides have these corners, so you have to make sure you cut on inner corners to reduce the seam allowance, so that when you flip it inside out, it looks like this. After that, you're going to flip it inside out just like this, and you're going to make a top stitch into that same previous seam that joins the back bodice detail and the back side bodice. So once you're sewing on this same seam, you'll see that the top stitch shows on the other side as well. Repeat this on the other side of the coat too. Now you're going to match the main front bodice and the back bodice with right sides together at the shoulder, and you're going to sew the shoulder seam, leaving a 1 cm seam allowance. Make sure to also cut on the inner corners to reduce the seam allowance before flipping it inside out. Once you turn it right side out, you're going to make a top stitch at 3 centimeters from the edge, so it's going to look a lot like the top stitch we did earlier. Now you're going to match it right sides together again, and you're going to sew the front underarm seam, leaving a 1 centimeter seam allowance. It's really important that you align the notches. I actually like beginning to sew right at one of the notches until one of the sides, and then once again from that notch towards the other side, just to make sure that everything aligns perfectly. Now you're going to fold the front center edges inward at the notches that we have on the top and bottom. And you're going to fold the bottom edges of the sleeves and the hemline inward at 5 centimeters. And we're going to press it really nicely in place. Then you can open back the folds. We just have to make sure that the folds are marked. You're going to go back to the pockets we previously made, and you're going to make top stitches on the welts of the pockets to fasten them onto the main fabric. Now you're going to grab both main back bodices and face them right sides together because we're going to stitch the center back, leaving a 1 centimeter seam allowance. After that, make sure to press the seam open, and you're going to make top stitches on each side of the seam allowance to fasten them to the main fabric. Now we're going to start preparing the lining. So you're going to match the front bodice facings and the front lining bodice with the right sides of the fabric together, just like this. And you're going to make cuts on the seam allowance so you can press it nicely towards the lining. You're going to repeat this on the back bodice facing and lining as well. Now you're going to match the lining back bodice and the lining back side bodices with the right sides together. Make sure to align the notches as always. And stitch leaving a 1 centimeter seam allowance. Before you press, make sure to make some cuts on the seam allowance and press towards the back bodice. Next, we're going to match the lining front bodices and lining back side bodices with the right sides together. Make sure to align the notches. And we're going to stitch leaving a 1 centimeter seam allowance. Now we're going to match right sides together right on the shoulders. And in one of the shoulders, we have to leave an opening of 15 centimeters, just as I'm showing you. But for the other shoulder, we can sew it all closed. Now that the lining is ready, it's time to prepare the collars. So match the top and under collar with right sides together and sew all around except on the bottom, leaving a 1 cm seam allowance. After that, make sure to trim off the corners just like this so you can flip it inside out. Press it really nicely. And now we can make a top stitch all around the edges and at the same time fasten the bottom edges. Next, we're going to attach the collar to the main coat. So make sure to match the under collar to the neckline of the main coat with right sides together, aligning the collar notches with the shoulder seams and the collar edges with the neckline front notches, and stitch leaving a 1 cm seam allowance. It should look like this. Now you're going to match the main and lining coats with right sides of the fabric together. And you're going to sew the front center edges closed, leaving a 1 cm seam allowance. Make sure to press the seam allowance towards the lining. Now we're going to do the same but in the neckline. So fold the main front center edges at previously pressed creases in the notches right sides together, and match the main and lining necklines to sew them, leaving a 1 cm seam allowance. Before flipping it inside out, make sure to make a lot of cuts on the neckline seam allowance. Now we're going to finish the hemline of the sleeves. So what I like to do is to pull out the sleeve lining as much as I can, and you're going to grab the sleeve bottom edges and you're going to match the main and lining sleeves with right sides of the fabric together. Make sure that you're aligning the corresponding seams on the lining and on the main coat. Then you're going to pull out both sleeves from the lining, just like this. And you're going to finish pinning together all around on both hems of the sleeves. This way you'll be able to sew all around, leaving a 1 centimeter. And it should look something like this. Now you're going to fold the seam allowance at previously pressed crease on the main sleeves, just like this. And you're going to fasten the seam allowance towards the main fabric with an invisible stitch. You're going to repeat this on the other side of the coat as well. Now we're going to finish off the hemline of the coat by folding once again the main front center edges at the previously pressed creases at the notches with right sides together, so the coat should be inside out. And you're going to match the main and lining hemlines just like this and pin them aligning the seams. You should start sewing leaving a 5 cm seam allowance and then build your way into a 1 cm seam allowance. And once you're reaching the other side, go up again, leaving a 5 cm seam allowance. Now you're going to fold the hemline upwards, right on the folded crease, and you're going to fasten the seam allowance to the main fabric with an invisible stitch, just like this. And now you can turn the coat inside out using the opening we left on the shoulder, and you can close that once again using an invisible zipper. Now we're going to make the buttonholes on the bottom edges, grabbing the front and back at the same time, just like this. And you're also going to make the buttonholes on the sleeves, grabbing both the front and back once again. And the one buttonhole on the left front. And then you can just sew the corresponding buttons. Now you're going to grab your snaps and you're going to hand sew them on the center front. Make sure to overlap the front center edges by 5 cm to place the snaps correctly. Once they're done, you're going to make top stitches at 5 cm from the neckline all the way towards the last snap. You're finally done with your coat. I promise you, you'll love making it, and it's perfect for winter, so make sure to add it to your sewing project list. If you like this video, make sure to give it some love and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching. Bye!